Hi, I'm Mark Sumner, CEO and founder of Robertson Sumner. Welcome to the Channel Chat podcast, where we will share learnings, best practices and failures with some of the biggest names in the IT industry. Today we were lucky enough to have Graeme Watt, CEO of Softcat, in the studio. We talked everything from his move from distribution for 30 years into reseller land, the culture at Softcat, the success they've had over the last few years, and also sustainability, what that means for the channel and what that means moving forward. So sit back, listen and enjoy. Hello, I'm Mark Sumner, host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and today I have my co-director Calum in the house, but also the CRN Industry Achievement Award winner of last year and CEO of Softcat, Graeme Watt. How are you doing, Graeme?
I'm very good. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Calum, for inviting me. I'm doing really well, thanks.
Graeme. In fact, we'll actually start there, Graeme, on the CRN Industry Award last year. So how did it feel actually being awarded something by your peers?
It was actually quite humbling. I'm not the sort of person that seeks any sort of recognition or anything, and I'm most pleased when the company I'm working for gets recognised for, as we were this year as Softcat for our public sector award. But it quickly became obvious. I think about, 15 words in, I thought, "Ooh, this sounds a little bit like me." I also, honestly, wasn't really that involved in the UK for quite a few years. And from about 2003 or something, I've been in EMEA, and in one case a global role. So getting re-engaged in the UK and being maybe a little bit more visible with CRN and the press and stuff, it was really nice I was a bit choked really and a bit humbled about the whole thing, but we don't talk about that anymore.
And so every time we have a guest on the show, we obviously ask them how they get onto this sort of crazy industry. So what was your first break into IT? Where did you start?
I was a chartered accountant. I was working for, this a little bit dates me now, for Ernst & Young. They're not called, Arthur Young. They're not called Arthur Young anymore, obviously. And one of my clients was an IT distributor in Basingstoke. It was about a 50-person outfit. It was 25 million turnover. This was back in '88. And it was such a fun place to be. It was a culture not dissimilar to Softcat, actually, but obviously quite a few years ago now, 33 years ago. And it was just fantastic, and I always wanted to. I knew chartered accountancy was a route into industry. It wasn't where I wanted to stop, and they offered me a job. I was went in as a financial manager, travelled quite a long way. I think at the time I was living in East London, Bermondsey. For anybody who knows Bermondsey, travelled all the way out to Basingstoke and back every day. It is a trek, and. So it was long hours. It was a long journey. It was a hard slog, but an experience that really, A, as you say, got me into the industry, and B, kind of really shaped a lot of who I am today, frankly. So we were a leading IT distributor at the time. It was called First Software. We changed our name to Frontline. We got bought by Computer 2000 and bought by Tech Data, and it's still Tech Data today and still remains the biggest and most successful IT distributor in the UK, if not globally. So,
and then you obviously moved on and you took it. Did you join Ideal Hardware or Bell Micro Products? When did you join those?
Bell Micro. So I joined not long after Don Bell had purchased, or Bell Micro had purchased Ideal Hardware.
Okay. And were you based out of the Chessington?
Yeah,
office?
I was. Yeah.
Okay. And tell me about your journey there. What happened?
Well, basically, I'd left Tech Data. So I ran Tech Data Europe from 2000 to 2003. I then decided it wasn't what I wanted to do anymore, and left Tech Data, and was put on 6 months garden leave. Actually, the story is a little bit more intricate than that. I was going to go and join Joe Hamani at West Coast.
Really?
This is, I think, reasonably
Alex
well
would have been out
known.
of job then.
Well, no, Alex wasn't there at the time.
No.
But we'll come back to that in a second. But and Joe was planning to buy Actavis. And so I left. I think I then went on public record in the press to say at some point, told people why I was leaving. I was going to go and join Joe. Joe was going to buy Actavis, and I was going to, with my European experience, was going to help him run the company. And he kind of phoned me up after this being the press. He says, "You shouldn't have done that." I said, "Well, why not?" He said, "Well, because we haven't closed the deal yet, and it doesn't look like we're going to." And so anyway, that opportunity that I kind of left for never really happened. And I thought, okay, back to the drawing board. And I spent many hours, weeks, days, weeks, whatever, saying, okay, what am I going to do? This is a fantastic opportunity to do something completely different and use what I've learned. And then when you've been through that process, I don't know if you've been through that process yourself, you suddenly realize that actually the only people that really know you or want your value are the people in the industry you've just come out of. So I went straight back into IT distribution. Talked with Don Bell many times. He was looking to change his leadership in Europe, and so the timing was good, and joined Bell Micro, which then got bought by Avnet, which then got bought by Tech Data in 2018. So 14 years later, I'm sitting in the European kind of leadership team with at least 50% of the people around the table being the same people that I'd left, 14 years ago. So it's kind of weird how things go and
what do you
around.
think? It's very incestuous, our industry, isn't it? So
Yeah.
the same people seem to mill around. Why do you think that is? Why do you think we all stay in the industry?
Because it's fun, because it's interesting, because it changes all the time, because it keeps throwing new challenges at us, and I think that's what makes it industry. You're not doing the same thing every day and kind of turning the handle. There's just so many new things to get your teeth stuck into. Vendors change rebates, vendors themselves gets bought. I mean, there's nothing in the channel that won't change or can't change, and I think I love the people in the industry as well. I always have done. Many of my best friends in the industry have been or are competitors today, so I think we're a very decent bunch in the IT channel as well. So it's just so stimulating.
And the opportunity then came up for Softcat. Now most people, you've almost bucked the trend really, because being in distribution for 25, 30 years or whatever it is.
It was about 30, yeah.
They'd almost say, well, there's no end user engagement. How does that
Yes.
job come up? Because we get a lot of people come into us from distribution,
Yes.
really want to try and get into work for a vendor or reseller,
Yes.
and they just don't get a look in at all
Yes.
because haven't got the end user experience.
Sure.
And obviously, you're at a different level, but
Sure.
you've probably landed the most sought after job of the channel the last 5 years. So how did it happen? How did you get it?
And actually, the points you make about that end user touch was a huge part of the attraction, because when I talked, in distribution, you're fulfilling obviously the demands of and the needs of resellers, but you're not. In most cases, you're not touching the end user and all of the excitement and challenges and interesting different verticals that they're in, whatever that brings. So, but I was walking I can remember I was having a bit of a dossy Friday afternoon. Yeah. This isn't going out on air, is it? It's too late now. Anyway, I was working for Tech Data at the time, walking the dog, and Martin Hallowell phones me up and he says, look, confidentially, he said, I'm thinking of changing role. I'm thinking of moving to chairman. You're on my shortlist, whether you like it or not.
Right.
Would you like to take that forward and apply for the role? And I said, actually, your timing is pretty good. I'm considering my options. And then through quite a long process of recruitment agent, Martin himself, the board, the founder Peter Kelly, various discussions around the place, landed the role against, I think, some pretty stiff competition, and it was, I think you said it well there, it's such a fantastic company with such a fantastic track record, not without risk. I think when you take a new role, there's always risk. I mean, if it's a company performing as highly as Softcat, the risk is that you can only go down. If it's a company that's having some sort of issues, the risk is that you can't turn it around and nothing changes. And I think ultimately the reason I got the role was because, amongst other things, the experience and knowledge in the industry and all the rest of it, was because, I understood the culture of Softcat as far as you can when you're on the outside of it. I was very happy to invest and support and continue to develop that culture, but also their assessment of me was that I would fit into that culture. And when we're looking at people externally, if we think they're not going to fit in culturally, then it doesn't matter what skills or expertise or anything else they've got. It's just not going to work. So I think fitting into the culture and valuing the culture were two key reasons I got the role.
That's a really interesting point as well. I just want to dive in on that quickly, because I'm going to use a bit of an analogy here, because it's kind of like, as you said, the only way is down, in a sense of when Fergie left Manulight and Martin Hallowell, absolute legend within the channel, there 11 years, growth. probably one of the channel's biggest success stories, Softcat, during that time.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult role for you then to take.
Yes.
So how did you sort of find that, taking over from a legend?
The legend that is
Martin
Hallowell.
Like you said, when it's been that successful, there's almost like, can it only go down, or
Yeah, I know.
or if it does go really well, is it on the back of his success before?
Well, I know. So that's fair. So I think there is to an extent you can score draw, but you can't win. You could argue. I mean, the fact of the matter is the company. And it's not because of me, because what the company does is never because of a single individual. But what we were aiming for was a seamless transition of CEO. And I think there was a reasonable size risk that with that change of CEO, particularly having the Softcat board having made the decision to recruit externally, viewing that perhaps some of the candidates for the role weren't quite ready at that point in time, I think... Yeah, there was risk that things could go wrong, and I think there's two key things that, again, this was maybe one of the reasons I got the job. When we were talking about the role and what sort of things I do, a lot of what we talked about, or I talked about, was that Softcat is so successful. The first thing I really wanted to do was make sure that I understood what the critical success factors were and continue to invest in them and make sure we didn't do anything to disrupt those. So you could see almost, Martin and others go, oh, thank Christ for that. Because what they don't want to do is somebody come in, change everything, and things go south. I think the other thing is it also hasn't happened by accident, because I think both Martin and myself in those early days worked really, 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 really hard to make sure that he transitioned his operational responsibilities to me, that he didn't get in the way of that. He didn't create any confusion. He didn't dip in and out. He didn't give people the opportunity to go to him. He went dark for the first month that I arrived. He just basically disappeared, which was really helpful. And we had quite some tough discussions, I would say, and I think he'd say this as well, about me, and I pushed back quite hard to make sure he wouldn't get involved in the business as a CEO, because people would all remember him as a CEO. And that wasn't easy, and I didn't like doing it, and he didn't like hearing it. But he also agreed and accepted it, and has to this day, and I've been in the role almost 2 years now, has operated to the agreement we had at the outset, and that's worked really well for me. I think it's worked really well for him. I think we have a tremendous relationship. I would like to think that they're clearly not. I'd like to think that the CEO's chairman relationship we have at Softcat is something other people could aspire to. And it's actually interesting, because in PLCs, it's not the done thing for the for the CEO to move to the chairman role, because they're worried about all the things that I just said we work really hard to prevent. But actually having Martin on the board as somebody who knows the industry fantastically well, has been supremely successful, who clearly knows Softcat, and his attention to detail is immense. Having all those things at my disposal, not interfering in the business, but at my disposal, and be able to work with Martin and ask for his opinion and what have you, has also really worked well for both me personally and for the company. So I think it hasn't happened by accident. We both had to work harder. I'd suggest that he probably had to work harder at it than I did, because I was coming in new CEO and just had to get on with stuff. He had to really consciously step out of the business, and his nickname at work is the big man, and everybody loves the big man. And
it's difficult for him as well.
Yeah, exactly. So he did a great job.
It's his baby. And handing over your baby and then having nothing to do with your baby for a month is tough. And but you've also got to really trust the person coming in, which obviously and I think that's what's worked really well. And their performance has continued to be strong. If some of our growth even accelerated, again, not down to me, but down to some investments that the company had made ahead of me arriving. So that, I think, we don't talk about that CEO transition anymore. That's done. It was seamless. Check. Now it's all about how we keep growing and developing the company. You mentioned
earlier that when you went for the job, it was they thought it was the right culture, and you thought it was the right cultural fit for you, and you continued the culture. When we speak to companies, we get a lot of people saying to us, oh yeah, we've got a great culture because we've got ping pong tables and we take them to the Nando's on a Friday, etc. What did they think you were going to be the right cultural fit, and why was it the right culture for you? And how do you define the Softcat culture? Because from a PR point of view, it seems like a fantastic company to work for. It's parties, it's always having a good time, etc. But there was obviously something that attracted to you, and how do you continue that?
So, I mean, I've at times I've written out all of the key components of the culture, and there's a very long list. So you and more importantly, the listeners will be relieved to hear I'm not going to trot out that very long list. But certain key components of it are, I love this is kind of cultural / behavioural, but I love the youth and energy of the company. And despite the fact that I'm approaching 60 far too rapidly, I still think I'm fairly youthful and certainly have a tremendous amount of energy. People have a positive attitude. We don't let negativity seep in. We have challenges, the same as every company has challenges, but we meet them head on, and we ask for people to have a positive attitude and to take ownership of stuff as well. And I think the other cultural things that I saw and particularly embrace is that people at Softcat are first of all, we're very good at having a dialogue. We're very good at talking about stuff, and it might be challenges, it might be opportunities, they might be personal, they might be business, but getting them out there so that others can help you achieve them or deal with them, on a personal and a business level is really super important, because without that dialogue, you've got no material really to work with. And I think the culture we've ultimately fostered, and the ethos of the company I'll come to, but the culture we've ultimately fostered is a hugely kind of teamwork / support orientated culture. So it's very easy, and people feel super comfortable going and asking for support. They don't have to pretend they know stuff, and it's not seen as a weakness if you don't. And likewise, people will give their support very readily, because if you give support, then you will get it back from them or somebody else another time. So that, I'd say those are some of the key components. It's a wonderful environment where people can express themselves. You can be yourself. You don't have to try and be what the company thinks you should be. You just be yourself. We've all got our strengths, we've all got our weaknesses. You can take some risks, you can make mistakes. You don't get thrown out on your ear if you make a mistake, but as long as you learn from them. You can't make the same mistake too many times, by the way. I think that's fairly obvious. And so I'd say those are some of the key components of the culture. And how do we keep that going? We keep it going by in opening up new regional offices, and so we don't have, we're close to 1,500 employees now. We don't have one big building with 1,500 employees. We have lots of different offices where they can take those key elements of the culture and build them up and keep them thriving in smaller units, if you like. And then we just make sure that all of the things around recognition and reward and incentives and recognition is just, it's not financial, it's just giving people awards or just saying well done and all those kind of simple things. It's the small stuff as well as the bigger stuff. We just make sure that we continue to do that all of the time. And the amount of time I spend personally, my leadership teams, the directors team spend, with the time we spend together talking about people or talking about making changes in the business and the impact that may have on people is incredible. But there's no more important thing to be talking about, frankly. If our people are super motivated, highly engaged, they will give outstanding customer service. That's our ethos. We totally believe it, and that's the way we roll. It's
interesting there as well, Graeme. You mentioned the sort of expansion to different offices,
yes,
and now kind of expansion to different countries as well. I know you've got a couple of people in sort of Hong Kong or Singapore and the US. Because you're so sort of culturally focused, it's quite hard to duplicate those cultures. So a lot of businesses make mistakes of having a London sort of culture or having a Manchester to culture. How do you make sure that doesn't happen? How do you make sure the same values and the same culture is being lived in every single office?
So, well, what we've done in our regional offices in the UK, and we've done the same thing in Ireland. So 2 years ago, we opened, actually shortly after we opened our Irish office. What we've done there, I mean, from a business point of view, we've created geographical coverage, and we can get closer to our customers, and that's important. But some of those customers we're already dealing with from a bit further away, Marlow, London, wherever. So when we're opening an office, we're giving people career opportunities. So some people from other offices will go and start up that office, and instead of being a deputy team leader, there might be a team leader or the sales manager, whatever. We're getting closer to our customers, as I said, and we in most cases we haven't opened that. We've always opened up those offices with people from Softcat. So many times those regional offices have been opened by people that come to us as directors and say, hey, we think we should have an office in Birmingham. We say, okay, go away, give us a bit more detail. Why should we invest? It costs roughly, I don't know, $500,000 in the first year to open up an office. Tell us why we should do that. Come back with a bit of a plan. Tell us who's going to go and do it. And that's how we've started offices. I mean, and there was a glaring gap. We opened up Birmingham in 2019. There was a glaring gap between that sort of Marlow, London corridor and Manchester that we filled. And but we only filled it because a guy called Jez Bahir, who came out of our Leeds office, said, I want to lead that office. And we had, I think, 15 people from a collection of other offices who knew Softcat, who know the way we work, who love successful people who wanted to move to Birmingham, start up. So that's how we do it. I think you have to start it up from the beginning, whether it's a company or a regional office, and you just continue to expand and invest it.
So you've never hired anyone externally to lead an office from the get-go?
No, we haven't. They've always come from internally. And then to your point, Calum, on outside of some of that international stuff you said, they're not currently trading into the local markets. They are operational hubs, if you like, helping our UK customers with their overseas needs. So we wouldn't be dealing with customers in those entities unless we had a UK relationship. And we kind of need it. It's a key component part now of being multinational, as we call it. It's a key component part of our growth strategy for the enterprise segment. So as you say, we've got one person in Singapore, we've got one about to be two in the US, but they're very much facilitating the fulfillment of business UK. Rather than selling UK customers overseas. But that network will grow. We're opening up another entity. We've got Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia, US, and we're opening up Netherlands in April. And I'm sure that as those customer opportunities keep coming to us, I'm sure we'll open up new entities too. And
one more thing on the culture, because the culture's what's brilliant. Or my understanding of Softcat is the board and the sort of execs will sit on the sales floor, and it's very much the same.
No
the same
office environment, little hierarchy. Sorry. Yeah.
Exactly. And I heard a rumor, and I've been looking for videos on this, that at the sales kickoff, you arrived on stage via Segway.
Yes. 3 of us.
Silver unitard.
Yes.
Dance routine.
Very minimal. The dance routine, not the leotard.
See, to me, that's outstanding. But from an external point of view, does that not scare you? Is that something you're because if someone asked me to do that, I'm thinking, I'll do it. But
No, I think that comes back to the point that people thought I'd fit into the culture. I like to kind of be a bit... I like the wackiness that we display and this kind of lack of conformity and what have you. And no, not at all. I mean, the only thing that scares me is those images getting out.
That's why I haven't found the video.
That's what you meant. Yeah, exactly. But no, we like to have fun. The kickoff's a great event, and we like to have a bit of fun. But that kickoff's about having fun. It's about a short look back. It's about looking forward. We get every single employee. Well, we don't get every single employee, but every single employee is invited to come. It's on a weekend. They get a day instead of some companies will kind of make you do that, and that's just part of being at that company. We give people a day off for taking up their Saturday. They get a day off at another time in the year, and I think this year. We had well over 1,000 people there, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And it's a great chance to recognise achievement, and we give out loads of awards in the evening and stuff. So and we do something a little bit wacky every year. God knows what it'll be next year. I haven't been told yet.
And have any of those wacky sort of things changed since you become a PLC?
I wasn't there before PLC, and it's an interesting question in the sense that I think. People who were at Softcat pre-PLC and post-PLC were a little bit worried that being a PLC would curb some of that lack of conformity and what have you, and make us do things in ways that perhaps we disagreed with or didn't think were priorities in terms of the further development of the company. But that hasn't happened at all. So we can still do all that nutty stuff. I mean, I think people are growing up a little bit, and so maybe some of the things 10, 15 years ago, this is true of life and all businesses, are maybe not the sort of things we do today, but we haven't matured so much that we're boring. We still like to kind of keep it edgy and fun, and it remains a key part of the culture.
You wouldn't be dancing on a stage if
exactly
if that was the case.
Exactly.
So moving on, I think probably to recruitment. We won't sort of bore you with too many recruitment type questions, but you did say in a CRN sort of article that finding new talent in order to grow the channel was a big challenge, or actually the biggest challenge out there. I think at the time that you said that. What can businesses like Softcat, what can other channel businesses do, distributors, vendors, us, do to tackle that challenge, would you say?
It's tricky, isn't it? Because we actually, and thankfully, the bulk of our recruitment in any year is graduate recruitment, graduate or apprentice recruitment, going into our sales teams. And but we have a high level of attrition in our first 1 to 2 years. And that's kind of the model, and that's people saying, actually, I don't really like a sales role because I don't like cold calling, or I don't like technology, or whatever it is. But not everybody that leaves their sales role, so we've got about a 40% attrition in year one. Not everybody that leaves will leave Softcat. They may go on and do other things in Softcat. And where we tend to have the skills shortage is more in the services and the technical areas. And it's frankly, it's difficult to know what to do, because if those skills are short, those skills are short. I think it's really important, though, that we have to make sure that we know what market rates are, that we're paying, at least close to those market rates. You have to do that to attract people. You have to do it to retain people because they're in high demand. I think it's an important element of there's so much value we offer our customers, but where there's skill shortage, the fact that we've got those skills but they can't find those skills anywhere is another value that we can provide. And I think the other, or maybe answering your question now, I think the biggest things we can do, and one of us is on us and one of us is on us as Softcat, one of us is us, you, us, the kind of collectively, thank you. We can do more about training and developing talent inside Softcat from graduates. So we are more and more now focusing on, we're not going to get as many people at the right price as we need in the organisation. So we have to start building a pipeline of that talent internally, knowing that there's a risk that you won't be able to keep it all either. But again, if you keep some of it, then that's still a net positive. And then I think just trying to create awareness at in the same way as we've been creating kind of gender awareness to females about how actually the tech industry is a really good industry to come to. You don't, it's not something to be scared of or avoid. It's really interesting. It's fast moving. It's, you don't have to do sales roles. There's all sorts of different skills you can bring into and learn in our industry. And so I think that keep publicizing our industry into schools and universities to an extent, to keep attracting that talent into our industry, because we're competing against other industries at that point. I think that's probably the biggest thing we can do.
Regarding on the services piece, how much of your business's services and how much do you outsource that to sort of companies or do you white label on the back of other companies?
Yes to all of those things. So our services business is around, last reported numbers, around 16-17% of our overall revenue. So still pretty big. And in fact, CRN brought out a report recently that showed our services business as being the third. Our product business was the largest in the UK, and our services business was the third largest in the UK, a tiny little bit behind SCC, with computer centres services ahead. And it's growing nicely too. But about 50% of that services business is your vendor resold services,
right? And
then about 50% of the services are either our own services, or, to your point, we're quite happy to use partners as well. So we've always focused really strong on customer needs and what our customers need us to do. Vendors will push us into all sorts of directions, quite often ahead of time when they're developing new technology, and I get that. But we're not really about experimenting on our customers with new technology. That's not what we do. So we kind of describe ourselves as kind of leading edge technology, not bleeding edge technology. So when customers are ready and they want to adopt technology, and we've discussed with them what their needs are and their challenges and how we can work together to kind of design a solution for them. If we don't have all of the component parts of that solution, we're very happy to go and partner with people. I think we've got quite a well-known reputation, particularly in services, as you're saying, Mark, of partnering with people and not pretending they're Softcat. We'll tell our customers that they're not Softcat, but we're fully responsible for the performance and behaviour of those companies, and we've created many win-win partnerships as a result of that.
Because I get a lot of that when I've asked people in the services industry.
Yes.
And they're white labeling on behalf of the other companies. They've told me before. We've talked about transparency in the market and trust and collaboration, all those good stuff that partnerships should have.
Yeah.
But yet a lot of partners are taking on services companies and pretending they're own when they work for them.
Yeah.
So you can Google this person on LinkedIn. Oh, actually, he works for Comscat or whoever it is. He doesn't work for Softcat.
No.
So why do you think companies do that? They actually pretend they're not saying they're trying to pretend they're bigger than they are, but they're pretending that they've got that services arm and it's not even nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
And two, for the services companies, when they're going in and actually pretending to be them, even sometimes having fake business cards, fake email addresses. Yeah. It doesn't send a good message to the end user when something goes wrong.
I agree. I don't know why they do it. I think we're all about transparency of relationship and, as I said, creating win-win partnerships. And if I was a service company, I wouldn't want to go in under somebody else's banner. I'd want my name. I'd want to stand out in my name, because for every engagement that Softcat took me into, there may be another engagement somewhere else that we don't form 100% of their businesses. So. I don't know. I mean, I think it's.
What advice would you give to small partners who want to do services but are scared that they can't? They have to pretend to be bigger than they are, or have to pretend to have services companies or people that work for them, and they don't even work for them. What advice would you give? I
would just say continue to demonstrate your value in the channel to the customers, and come and partner with people like Softcat, where you can grow your business. Demonstrating a clear need for a customer and a clear gap in the market that many other resellers don't have, and your business will grow and our business will grow, and it's back to that win-win. Everybody's happy. So
one of the listener questions that I wanted to get in, which I thought was a great one, was what are your most profitable product lines or your fastest growing product lines at the moment at Softcat? You don't have to give us the prices, don't worry. we won't leak them.
I don't even know what they are. So, And in fact, interestingly, to your point on price, price is pretty low down in the order of stuff that we talk about with our customers. We do, and this may sound a bit idealistic, but we do spend an awful lot of time when we're engaging with customers, either new or existing customers, understanding what they need. We're not about taking in some pre-packaged proposition. It's got to be a Dell server with some bit of Microsoft Teams and whatever else, an HP laptop environment or whatever. It's absolutely not like that. We genuinely work with the customer to understand what they need, which technology fits their needs best, and then we kind of start selecting vendors that supply that technology. And pricing comes way down the discussion. In terms of profitable, you'd probably be surprised. I'm not going to go into every single bit of detail, but you'd probably be surprised that one of our fastest growing, if I give you a fast growing technology and a fast growing segment last year, fastest growing piece of technology was in the workspace. So everything around printing, PCs, that whole workspace environment was our fastest growing.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah, no,
you're not making this up, Graeme, are you? Putting your competitors on. It's all workspace. It's like, no, everyone's talking about the cloud, Graeme.
Well, the beauty of the Softcat model at the moment is that actually most areas of technology are growing, and most segments, because we've got this kind of pretty strong or very strong broad base of technology now. But workspace, our public sector was huge growth for us last year. I think it grew by revenue over 50% year over year, which again I found quite surprising.
Yeah,
I mean, we were putting a lot of investment into public sector and wanted to grow it, but we didn't think 51% sales growth. And then what other technologies? I mean, like I say, data center, cloud, networking, security, they were all going pretty well. One thing, again, this is we're not non-conformist for the sake of being non-conformists, but if there is a certain sort of, the cognoscenti of the industry believe that you should become completely software and services, I sort of get that to a point, but I don't get why you would completely re-engineer your business to become a software and services company necessarily, because, roughly rough and tough 70% of our business is software and services, but we've got a very strong hardware business. Back to your point about profitability, it's a not dissimilar profitability from software, and it's growing.
Is it really?
And it's growing. Really? So 30% of our business is hardware, and we're delighted with it. So why would we sort of, to use that horrible industry phrase, pivot to software and services? I don't want to pivot anyway. I hate that word. But anyway, why would we pivot to software and services when we're enjoying such nice growth and profitability in hardware? It doesn't make sense. So we're very customer driven, and all of those areas remain relevant in the industry. I think all of the key drivers around digital transformation and cloud adoption and cyber security, and all the services and support our customers need to help them with those various journeys, and they're all on those journeys at different times. They were relevant last year, they were relevant the year before, they're relevant this year. I don't see those drivers going away anytime. So it's whilst we're growing strongly and we're surely taking market share, I think we're all lucky that we're in an industry that's growing nicely too. So
it's really interesting that, and sort of that non-conformist sort of mentality, because I remember reading something from Martin saying actually when everyone goes in that direction, everyone's talking about cloud. You go where they've just left, which is people get distracted by all these sort of squirrels that are sending companies one way, and actually there's a big opportunity where
it is, because I think what we do around that, as I say, we're not non-conformist for non-conformity's sake, but we do question the wisdom of certain things that become a kind of standard view in the industry, or a standard view of how you run your company, or what your employees should do or look like, or how they should behave, or whatever. We question those things because we don't think they all make sense. And that's how, and I think we've done a really good job of that. And like you say, I mean, way before I joined, Dell, for example, when Dell was first coming to the channel, and a lot of people took the attitude, well, screw you, Dell, you've been direct for so long, and why should we embrace you? Martin and others said, no, we're going to be early in with Dell. We're going to help them build their channel business because they're going to be successful, and we'd rather they were successful with us than without us. And so it's just...
they weren't dipping their toe in the market. They were going in, weren't they?
And it's a combination of those good decisions that makes the company successful.
In 2019, you did... you organised, I think, assembled the sort of channel, The Big Sleep Out.
Yeah.
And raised over £100,000 for charity. Yeah. What more do you think businesses can do for charitable causes? I mean, and I mean successful businesses, at the forefront like yourselves.
I think, again, another reason why I joined Softcat, and somebody said to me when I joined, and I've regurgitated this phrase a few times. They said one of the reasons I'm at Softcat. This was a sales leader in our London office. One of the reasons I'm at actually his name's Matt Brennan. He'll love the fact that I've named it. Is that it's because he enjoys that, because Softcat finds that things that happen outside the business and outside the company are in some cases as important as the things that happen inside our business. And I think that was a really good observation. So I'll answer your question directly in a second, but at Softcat, we think we've got responsibilities that go above and beyond reselling infrastructure technology, and working and helping charities, helping them raise money is extremely important. As you know, we've got a very well-known charity ball every year. This year it's 2nd of April in Tobacco Dock. Last year we raised £330,000 from that event alone. Amazing, yeah. We pay for, together with the vendors, we pay for to set it up, and then all the money that comes in from people, either vendors buying tables or donations on the night, and auctions and what have you, all of the money goes to charity. So we pay for it and the money goes to charity. £330,000. We're probably raising, and I'm guessing now, roughly in excess of £500,000 a year for charitable causes. Individuals, each office has got its own charity. So we do a ton of stuff, and we're also very interested in and in this year in particular, in the volunteering element. So we give every employee, they can take up to 2 days off to volunteer.
Yep.
And that you don't have to kind of take that out of your annual vacation allowance or what have you, holiday allowance. And we've been doing a big push. It hasn't, the volunteering element of it has been sort of pushed behind the fundraising element of it, and now we're getting people to volunteer a lot as well. And I think that's fantastic, because raising money is one thing, but actually seeing these charities firsthand and helping people or organisations to be sustainable, to help the homeless, to help organisations that like our main, we've got 2 main charities, Mind for mental health care, which has been a big focus for us this year, and we've got another one called Bethsaida Kanko Foundation, which is a small village in the northeast of India where they built up this orphanage and education, and the school's now 200 or 300 strong, maybe even more than that. And these kids are getting first-time education, first generation of kids going to school and being educated. And we've just sent our first party out to India, and they've come back with wonderful stories. Did you? Yeah, wonderful experience. They decided, amongst other kind of spontaneous things they did out there, that they would buy 2 pigs. And I think the pigs, I can't remember what the pigs' names are, but I think they were named after 2 of the party that went out there. And so these pigs are now growing, and at some point they'll get slaughtered and provide food for lots of people. And we're trying to learn how we can help. We hope that in this case the Indian charity, that they can learn from us. We can help them with their IT needs. We can help them be more sustainable and not rely on donations as much as they do today. And all of those things are great. And then back to your World Big Sleep Out, I kind of got into that because the Glasgow office at Softcat, and actually my son, who's at Edinburgh University, were both doing it independently in Scotland. And Josh Littlejohn, who started the whole thing, came on TV the next morning looking a little bit bedraggled. I think he spent all night going from Dundee to Aberdeen to Glasgow and Edinburgh, and kind of said, we're going to do something even bigger next year. And I just mailed him and said, look, I couldn't help seeing you on TV. Our Glasgow office took part, and my son taking in Glasgow, my son taking part in Edinburgh. Love to know what you're doing next year, because I think it's something we could really help with. And not necessarily thinking that anything would come out of it. Maybe, it was kind of a spur of the moment thing. So he gets in touch, we get chatting. He's already got this World Big Sleep Out thing, $50 million he was trying to raise over 50 cities with 50,000 people. Well, 50,000 people in over 50 cities, and raised, he had to put a number on it, this sort of hairy-ass goal, and actually, but still raised $15 million in the end, which is just immense. And we did pretty well. Me and my team, a combination of friends locally to me in Wandsworth in London and industry mates got together. And I think it captured the imagination of the industry a little bit. We had nice support of some publicity on the CRN. There was plenty on LinkedIn. Yeah. And so we're thinking that the industry... So I think companies should do, to answer your question, companies should do more themselves, clearly. But I think there's this sort of coming together thing, and that could happen this year, so watch this space. Angela Whitty from Cisco, who's very interested in that sort of stuff, and myself in particular interested in tapping into that energy, and lots of people who did it want to do it again, and lots of people who didn't do it said, I'd like to be part of something. So I think we could, depending on how this plays out, we could end up having an industry charity event where some of the kind of senior leaders or key figures in the industry go and do something, and hopefully as you say, we raised over £120,000, and we could raise, I don't know, 2-3x that or something.
I was going to say, anyone can get Stuart Fenton to sleep overnight is doing well, because I got the text from him, must have been fair play. I was really surprised, and I thought, really great charity.
He was brilliant. I've got such great memories of that whole evening. So Stuart managed to get himself in a sleeping bag with... He brought 2 golf umbrellas with him.
I bet he did.
Had them in some sort of crisscross hold, which he was desperately hanging on to because the wind was trying to blow them away and blow him away. He kind of gave up after a while, I think, and then he left quite early. I mean, we all left at 6 or 7. It was quite a wet evening in the end, so it was quite a challenge. But bless him, he was flying to Chicago the next day, so he literally got up from there. I guess went home or went somewhere to pick up his bags. Then went straight to the airport, flew to Chicago, I think it was, and spent the weekend. So brilliant.
And I think that's what really what makes our industry so special as a whole. You can talk about sort of certain companies, you can talk about Softcat, you can talk about certain Disney's vendors or whatever, but actually to get competitors, really, you're sat there with your arm around Scott Dodds or whoever, sort of celebrating and doing something for a good cause. There's not many other industries.
There's a ton of decent people in our industry, and we should continue to encourage them to do really great things. And
Graeme, I was going to ask you, so obviously since you've taken over 2 years, now you've been very humble about your contribution to that, but it's obviously been a success story continued since you've taken over. Yeah. If you could name one thing that you put your own stamp on the sort of Softcat journey, what would it be?
A few things really. I mean, I think we've, I think the multinational piece and recognising that we need to invest, as I say, support that enterprise growth strategy has been important. And I think if you think about, some of the experience I've had as a distributor in my career as a distributor, that I can bring into Softcat, whether or not we use them or not, that's a different matter. But things like multi-country management experience, M&A, put some pretty big systems in over the years. Some of those things, multinational and building up of that network, whilst not particularly heavily staffed at this point, that could really grow into quite something. So that's been a key point. Just lots of smaller. It's more an evolution of the company. As I said before, keep investing in all the critical success factors, but create more opportunities for people, whether that be around our kind of newly formed senior management team, which is a team of about 50 people that didn't used to a group 50 didn't used to exist.
Big management team.
So, well, it's a selection of managers, and we get together once a month for 90 minutes, and we talk about things that perhaps you couldn't talk about in a bigger group. And it's a great chance for the directors and me to check and balance some thoughts with them. It's a great chance for them to challenge us and say, hey, that's great, but we're not doing anything here, and we think that's a real mistake and whatever. So it's a very collaborative, as I say, transparent and kind of open relationship. But just making sure the Softcat podcast that we talked about before we came on air here.
You copied us in that.
Yeah. Well, maybe we did. Yeah. I mean, I don't mind copying good ideas. Yeah. So to finding different ways of communicating to the whole company. This one through a quarterly podcast that we do. There's all sorts of things, but nothing. We've introduced new services. I'm trying to replicate the success that we had in distribution with IBM to be the same, for example, just to call one vendor out, to be similarly big at Softcat. Potentially, there's potential there. Whether it'll happen or not, I don't know. So there's all sorts of things that we're working on, but it's an evolution. It's not. There's no revolutionary changes we've made.
I've got a couple of questions on that actually, from a coffee that I had with Martin Hellawell probably about a year after he moved into the chair role. Because he was saying that you made some really brave decisions. It sort of ties in with employee benefits and that sort of volunteering type change there, and giving staff 2 days to go out and volunteer. But one of the changes was flexible working.
Yeah, I thought you might mention that.
And for me, a really culturally led business, it's really important to get everyone in the same room and to sort of continue to nurture and develop that.
Yes.
How's that gone for you? How did you introduce it? It was something that sort of Martin was very nervous to introduce.
Well, he was nervous about introducing it, but at the end of the day, it wasn't his decision. So.
Sorry, Martin.
I know, he'll hear this and he'll go, okay, here we go. Because this is where, at the end of the day, the board and Martin in his role as chairman of the board, they're responsible for kind of agreeing the strategy that the director team propose. They're responsible for all the corporate governance and making sure that we're compliant in all respects as a PLC. And they're responsible for hiring and firing CFOs and CEOs, which that'll bring a smile to face.
There we go.
It's documented now, Graeme.
But as I said earlier on, because of Martin's knowledge of the business, deep knowledge of it, and I trust and respect him enormously, we will take things that are where they're kind of brave or fundamentally different. We will take them to him just to get his perspective on, because it's interesting. It's better if he supports it than if he doesn't, but he will have an interesting perspective, and he'll always tell you the way it is, what he thinks, which is great too. So flexible working. I mean, we I'm sure a lot of companies do this, but we every year we will have a kind of all hands employee engagement survey, satisfaction survey, and this year we had like 92 or 93% response rate, which was great. Our employee net promoter score, I think, was 58 from memory. Or no, it was more than that. It was 63 or 64. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. You got that already. Thank you.
64.
64.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important. But coming out of that, they were telling us a few things about what they'd like to see improve. And it was anything from the office environments, and we've gone and embarked on a multi-million, 2 or 3 million refurbishment program in our main offices of Manchester and Marlow as a result of that feedback. They in a manner of ways, different comments and bits of feedback told us that our management maturity wasn't where it needed to be. So we're just in the process now of introducing an internal management program of training and development called Management Essentials. They told us that our working practices had fallen out of step with the market in both terms of number of hours that they were being contracted to work. Not that people work to contracted hours, but nonetheless, if you see it in a contract and it's a bit more than the generally accepted levels, it still has a kind of negative impact. And the point you raised about flexible working hours. And I think... so we reduced the number of hours contractually that everybody is required to work by only 2.5 hours, but nonetheless half an hour a day, and that was, a significant, or seen as a significant change. And then around the flexible hours, it was really just to I'm actually totally with you. What we don't want to do is we don't want to have a place where people turn up when they want, and it's completely optional whether you go to the office or not, and you work from home when you want. All rest of it. That's not what we want to be, and it's not what we've created. But within the environment that largely requires people to be in the office, because that's where you learn, that's where you sort challenges, that's where you speak to each other, that's where you have that important dialogue that we talked about earlier on. We did increase flexibility, so give people and managers more flexibility, and that allowed them to take kids to school, pick them up from school, some of those things. And it was a massive positive. I can't tell you how well it went down. I mean, amazing. And I think and then I think they told us that some of our incentive trips and what have you, and weekends away and whatever, were getting a little bit outdated because the workforce is getting a little bit older, or some of the workforce is. We're still recruiting graduates. Actually, the average age of the company is 29, so it's really not that old at all. In 1,500 employees, it's still super young. But they told us that they needed looking at and modification. And I think what's super, super brilliant, and I'm saying this as kind of the CEO of the company, but I think the employees are saying this as well, is not just getting the chance to say what you think about what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy and what you'd like to see improve in the company, but when the leadership team turns around and takes those points and takes real action, there can't be anything better than that. And so that was really important to us, and that's why we did it. Yeah, and if Martin it was a brave move. I mean, a brave in the sense that we could have become less productive, less effective.
Well, you lose some of that magic.
Yeah, exactly. It's very easy to see the negatives, but I think the positives at least balance the negatives, and we haven't really seen the negatives come into play. And as I say, it's been really positive.
I think one thing as well on that, and you just mentioned in terms of sort of incentive trips, and you're a very sales-led business as Softcat, but as part of that expansion, you've had to hire. I imagine that we were talking earlier about the shortages in sort of operational or technical or marketing type staff.
Yeah.
I put a post out recently on LinkedIn in regards to this, and in regards to sort of most employee benefits packages are very led towards salespeople.
Yes.
A couple of people came back and actually said Softcat do a really good job of including the operational staff within some of these incentives. What do you, just because that a lot of businesses leaders out there will be interested in that, what do you do in order to
we just make sure together? We make sure that wherever possible that we're aware of success and that we recognize success. And that, as I said before, that could be anything from you get to go on a half-year incentive trip. This year it's to Tel Aviv. We're taking 140 people in 2 trips of 70 plus. I think that those numbers are right. To Tel Aviv for long, 3 days or 3 or 4 days each. The year-end incentive's a bit bigger, and it's the big one to get on. But we make sure that the salespeople make sure that there's nominations and there's places set aside for the business for anybody that supports that sales. So that's a key part. We have employees of the quarters, we have employees of the months that we publish and recognise and reward. There's always business operations, as part of that. We have awards, as I said, at our kickoff every year. We make sure business operations and all the support functions are recognised there. It's just. Whilst we're a sales company, it's recognising the fact that without the support, we wouldn't be able to sell anything. But also, the support guys know that without the sales guys, we wouldn't need support. So we're all dependent on each other, and it's just making sure that we're being inclusive and not leaving anybody out. And it can be. We have a thing every Friday that goes out called a love email, and in this love email, one of the directors will share some experiences of his or her week, talk about what they did, why they did it. I went to see this vendor, and or I went to did some volunteering, or whatever they did. They just kind of talk a little bit about their experience, and then we congratulate people. Thank you to the green team for their fantastic efforts in this week with all the green stuff they did, or whoever they want to thank. And then all of the employees have a chance to thank somebody else or multiple people in the organisation as well. And so at the end of the sort of 1/2 to 1 page bit that the director does, and we do it in rotation, then there's we share the love that everybody else has shared with each other at the bottom of this email. And certainly in previous companies I worked for, and I'm not being critical of those companies at all, but if we'd created an initiative like that, you'd probably get quite a bit of love shared in the first week, maybe a little bit less in the next week, and about 6 weeks later it'd be done. Yep. This thing's been going for 7 years, and every week you go down to the bottom of the email, and I think, oh my God, how far am I going to have to scroll down here? And it's people helping each other, sales helping sales helping business ops helping sales, in customer engagements, or I got into a real pickle and you helped me find the way through, whatever. It's amazing, and it's magic, just a number of things where people have vehicles to recognise success, and we as a management team make sure we recognise success wherever we can as well. And it can be financial, it can be trips, it can be just words in emails and what have you, or people getting called out in a Monday morning sales meeting, or whatever it is. There's a whole host of
small things make a big
mechanisms.
Difference.
Yeah, I agree.
You said last year in a CRN article that you've never seen the market so good. Are you still as optimistic this year and over the coming years?
Super optimistic. Really? Yeah, I mean, I'm optimistic for Softcat, and I'm optimistic for the market. Those drivers for growth, where people are digitally transforming their businesses to create better customer and employee experiences, are still there. People are trying to refresh and upgrade to the latest technology in the workspace. Cybersecurity will never go away, because the last person you want to be is the IT director that goes to the CEO that says, I've just saved 50 grand on our security landscape, and 3 weeks later gets hacked and your whole company reputation is in tatters. People are migrating workloads or starting up businesses fully in the cloud, or migrating workloads in the cloud, and our customers need more help than they've ever needed before, frankly, to understand how they build that hybrid cloud environment. And so all of those drivers are in place. There's edge computing. There's the implications coming down the pike, and I think 5G's really facilitated that, and that's going to open up a whole load more of security and compute and data and storage opportunities. I haven't really, if I'm honest, totally got my head around how big the implications of AI are and RPA in terms of an infrastructure solutions reseller like ourselves. But the market's got great technology today. It's got great growth drivers that are staying in place. It's got great opportunities coming down the pike. And from our point of view, we think we've got around about, as the second largest by volume infrastructure reseller in the UK, we think we've got about 3% market share. So we've got loads of market share to go after. We think on average we've only got somewhere in the region of 15% share of wallet of the customers that we've got, and we've got 12,000, last reported 12,300 customers. So our opportunity to grow in a market that's growing is fantastic. So we're very... we have to deliver, of course. We have to maintain what we're doing and the quality and the standards of what we're doing today, and we have to keep growing and evolving our business. We have to make sure that Softcat continues to be a great place to work. We have to make sure that we're giving outstanding customer service and listening to their needs. But if we do all that, then this is a fantastic opportunity. And a great opportunity, as I said, from a market point of view, a great opportunity for us all.
Absolutely. What are the listener questions that I really wanted to get in? Because
this sounds tricky already.
No, it's a good one. It's a good one, Graeme, because obviously you've worked in distribution, for most of your career. You've obviously now been recently, you've never worked for a vendor.
Yes.
But if you was to start your own business, a channel company, what would it be?
A channel company
in
this industry.
Yeah, in this industry. If you had to go and start one up, what would you go and do?
Well, I definitely start a reseller rather than a distributor, just because that end user touch and the ability, you've got more power to influence, and you've got more power that you can leverage back into distribution or ultimately the vendors, because you're touching the end user. So I love that. I've really enjoyed, not that I didn't enjoy distribution, but I've enjoyed that progression to reseller. I'd probably go for something boring. Well, I say boring, but kind of standard, like cyber security.
So it could be like Softcat or Hardcat.
Well, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I'll come back to you. You can maybe come up with some better names. But a good start there. But just because I don't think that means security is a decent, it's a sort of 7, 8, 9% CAGR growth part of our industry. It's never going to go away. People are always going to need to be secure. The technology changes will continue to drive changes to the security needs. And actually the most exciting thing, if I did start up my own business, would be less about the technology we serve. It would be more about, I would take all of the stuff I've learned about how you deal with people and treat people and the cultural things we've spent quite a bit talking about. And I'd really, really enjoy putting that into a new company and starting a company out that way. Because I'm a firm believer that the reason that Softcat is so successful is its culture. I think it's our biggest positive differentiator in the marketplace, because we're a fragmented market and it's quite difficult to differentiate. We're not creating a lot of IP ourselves. We're reselling, smart vendors out there, and we're reselling their IP. But I think if we're in terms of the success of Softcat and the cultural piece is kind of down to Peter Kelly, the founder. He created it. Martin was brilliant and visionary and continued to invest and grow the culture at the same time as building out the portfolio of the company. I've continued it at least, for my 2-year tenure so far. But I don't believe you can go to companies and change the culture. You can maybe, they're a bit like tankers. You can change and modify the culture a bit. I think HPE have been doing a lot of changing their culture, and I think they've done a good job, and I think it's a more positive place to look at from the outside and be part of as well. But I don't think you can change the culture to be like somebody else's. I don't think an Insight or a CDW or even a smaller reseller can look at Softcat and say, we want to change our culture to be like that, because you're already established, you've already got a culture. So having said that, I'm not about to leave Softcat and start up a reseller. So
Secure Cat is not on the table at the moment, unfortunately.
I'll leave that to you, Mark. Yeah.
And in terms of, I'm conscious of time, but I want to cover a couple of bits before we... One being that sort of inclusive nature of the Softcat culture, because you actually put, about probably this time last year, you proactively, there was a proactive message on LinkedIn saying you were looking for a female candidate for a board position. And I want to cover women in tech briefly.
Sure.
But also I hear Anushka's name. I think is it Anushka?
It is, or Nush as we call it,
throughout a whole host of conversations that I have within the channel around equal opportunities hiring. So it's not just women in tech, it's sort of the autism initiative, which I know Martin was very passionate about, and we've now got involved with National Autistic Society. So what are you doing around equal opportunities hiring? And around about this time last year, you mentioned in regards to women in tech, you're working on a board that isn't maybe as diverse as previous boards that you've worked on. How's that changed within Softcat?
So take the board piece first. I mean, it's really been Martin that's been driving that, but obviously with my support, it's his job to, actually the chairman of the nominations committee job to kind of help drive the composition of the board. And we did, I think diversity is important because, and these are the words I like that best describe it for me, I think we need to have better balance inside our organisation. So when we're looking at things, when we're interpreting things, when we're interviewing people, when we're selecting people, we've got to have better balance around the place so that we're making decisions that are not biased towards one part of or unduly biased towards one part of the population. And so in the case of a couple of opportunities presented themselves to Martin to make some changes to the board of directors. And I think, to be fair, the first selection criteria was they have to be really damn good to be on the board in the first place.
The best person.
And then I think there was a bias, if you like, to bring in some women on the board. But actually, some of that is driven by regulations that where people, some investors, but regulations expect you to have a certain percentage on the board. Anyway, good news is we've got now 50% of the board is female and 50% is male, so that's cool. So out of a 6-person board, 3 are women, 3 are men. From my perspective, we've still got some work to do inside the company. So our gender balance is on gender for a second is no better or worse than any other company when you look at how we have to report. I think it's very much an industry thing. If you look at IT sales and you look at technical and services, there's not a great pool of there's not a balanced pool to choose from, and therefore we're only really reflecting the pool from which we're recruiting. I do think we've got, and so Nush, back to your comment about Nush, Nush runs 3 elements to job title. She's in charge of talent, and that's a lot about succession planning and identifying talent. It's around employee engagement. We talked a little bit about that in our surveys and what have you, and she's responsible for diversity and inclusion. And we've been doing a lot of initiatives internally, a lot of initiatives with various events, the Tech Festival, the CRN Women in Channel Awards and what have you. I was a judge at that. I'm an advisory board member for the Women in Tech initiative. And I think they're all really important. And by the way, the reason I get involved personally on some of these things is, A, I believe in it, and B, I can learn things from other people. I love meeting other organisations, and we can compare notes about what everybody's doing and what works and what doesn't work. I think one thing, the clear strand in all of this, though, is that we're in it for the long haul. There's no game changers, there's no switches you can flick or behaviours you can change or things that you can do will make a step change in function overnight. We're in it for the long haul. It will take lots of people, lots of time to make the industry more attractive, to create more balance in the industry and therefore inside our company. I don't think there was ever any active bias in selections that we had, no conscious bias inside the company. You don't know whether there's subconscious bias, but we've taken steps to mitigate against that when look with the information we ask in CVs, the way we present that to the decision makers in the organisation, take out some of those potential gender biases. But I think there are lots of small steps, and we would hope to make a difference over time. But it's going to take a long time. And in terms of your point on the equal opportunities piece, we do have Martin initiated from his own personal experiences of having a child with autism and his interest in helping and in investing in people with autism. We've got a couple of people inside the organisation that's sponsored by Martin doing roles inside the organisation. We haven't taken that we still have them, but we haven't taken it any further at this stage. But I think we need to make our focus on diversity a bit broader than gender. It's easy to focus on gender, and I think that includes going all the way to equal opportunities, and we've got some work to do on that next year, but we're 100% behind.
I think it's phenomenal though, just from speaking with people at Softcat, what a massive impact the 2 autistic people you have in I think it's Molly, but you hear her name all the time, and you think it's great for her, but it's phenomenal for the organisation, and it's a bit of sense of camaraderie. And
I agree. Again, it's another humbling element of the company and what we're able to do, and again, if we think something's right, we'll do it. I mean, regardless of the consequences, if you like, and then that's just one example. Yeah.
Perfect. And I've got. Sorry, Mark. I've got a final sort of Softcat question actually from a Softcat employee, and I got it twice.
Okay.
So it must be
important.
very, very, very important.
Yeah.
But the question was based around Softcat's hiring model, and as we've talked a couple of times, how it's usually focused on graduates or sort of entry-level employees and organically developing them through the business. And these couple of employees just said a few hires for more senior roles have been made externally recently, and they were kind of wondering, well, the question was posed, is this original Softcat model of entry-level or graduate recruitment sustainable as you continue to expand and grow? And
I think it's definitely sustainable. So we haven't made any changes to that graduate model. The only change we've really made is to increment the graduate recruitment model with apprentices as well. So people that have left school but haven't gone to further education necessarily. Both those schemes continue to work really, really well. We're recruiting somewhere in the region of 225, 230 apprentices and graduates every year. We don't, as I said earlier on, we don't see any sign of that slowing. It's not getting. We're clearly competing with others, but when you're, for example, number 5 in the UK Glassdoor best places to work, that gives you a little bit of an advantage over others, because you're going to attract slight advantage. You're going to hopefully attract people to come and work for you, and people see you as being more attractive than others. But so that's all working, and actually we haven't brought in lots of people from outside into senior roles. I'd sort of slightly challenge that view if that was the view. Having said that, whilst our preference is to recruit from within and grow people within the company, there's no doubt that from time to time it's a really good thing to go outside as well.
Absolutely.
Because either we don't have that talent and skills internally, because they're new talent and skills that have grown up in the industry and we just don't have them, or people have got skills and experience that you couldn't get at Softcat that they bring in. I came from outside. Maybe they're referring to me. I don't know.
How did you get that job? It should never happen.
No. There's been a nasty turn in this podcast.
Can you ask Graeme how he got the job? Yeah.
But that was 2 years ago. But having said that, I mean, hopefully I don't sound defensive.
No.
I am all for looking at bringing in people from outside, and for certain roles in the organisation, for certain skills and experience. I think it's a really healthy thing that people bring those skills into the company. They bring that different perception of how things work, that different view of things, and it helps us grow as a company and makes us more complete. So we'll continue to do both, but the graduate recruitment is still fundamental to our sales recruitment.
And there was just one thing that you've actually raised as well in regards to sustainability within the channel, and the channel not doing enough necessarily in that space. So I didn't know if you wanted to
only to the extent that, and we're probably not doing enough with it either, by the way. So I just think it's, of all the good things that I've said that I enjoy, and I think we do in the channel, and we do an awful lot of good in the channel, I mean, collectively, in our industry. I think sustainability isn't being taken seriously enough, or we're not moving at a fast enough pace. I mean, anybody who's concerned about the future of this planet, which I think is most of us, we should be doing more. Manufacturers should be doing more about how they recycle material, how they build from recyclable materials, how they manufacture using recyclable materials. We should be doing more as a channel about making sure that we're somehow prioritizing that technology ahead of technology that perhaps doesn't fulfill those criteria. We should all be doing more as businesses about how we run our buildings and our people, and we've moved to we have a fleet of cars that our salespeople can use for visiting customers. That's all been changed they're all being changed to electric cars now. There's nothing groundbreaking. We've got a green team that sits down and says, what can we do? We've stopped. I think we've almost stopped asked vendor, or how can I put this? We kind of refuse now to take vendor T-shirts and material like that now, unless it's recyclable. So we're trying to encourage others to kind of speed up in terms of their uptake. There's again, it's lots of little things, but the way we behave and the way when we're refurbishing our businesses, what can we do to have the water better recycled, or there's all, how can the heating be, how can the insulation be better, how can we heat in a more responsible manner? We're trying to do those things, but actually interestingly, on the building side of things, some of the things you want to do are like too expensive to deploy. I mean, there's a super high cost to being super green. So you can't do everything you want to do probably. But I just think as an industry, there's more we must be doing. We're pulling minerals out of the ground every day for batteries, for chipsets, for whatever it is, motherboards, whatever it is. And there's just a ton more we should be doing.
I think that's one of the beauties of the channel, though, as you say, we're just even the basics of doing little things and saying, I won't take your T-shirt unless it's sort of sustainably sourced or whatever. Those little things will pass on from distributors to vendors to other resellers. We'll see other people doing good stuff. So hopefully
I agree. It's lots of ideas that if we keep sharing with them and keep showing a bit of leadership from time to time, others will adopt. I agree.
So the last two questions you'll be glad to know. One of them, most of the listeners are going to look at your career and think, look, I'd love to be able to emulate Graeme's career throughout. So if you were going to give a bit of advice to either a newish manager or another leader in a company or a contributor in sales who wants to really make a name for themselves and have a similar career to you, what would be the bit of advice you'd give them?
I think the main thing is it's interesting because just personally for a second, I haven't necessarily been that ambitious. I always kind of feel like I've fallen into roles. But the reason I've fallen into it is not because I've been getting in people's face the whole time saying, I need the next thing. It's just I have an inherent interest in learning. And I think if people, and the best, and if you want to learn, and if you want to put your position where leadership roles come your way, you've got to have a certain experience and expertise and skills that you develop through your career. And so do put yourself forward for projects when they come up. Do try and learn different facets of being a reseller or a distributor or a vendor or wherever you work in the channel, recruitment, whatever it is. Do try and put yourself in different situations. Try and learn. So have an appetite and a thirst for learning. Take some risk, because there's always personal risk when you put yourself in new situations. Make sure you're in an environment that allows you to take risk and makes mistakes, because that could be problematic otherwise.
Otherwise you're fired.
And exactly. But that would be my main. Don't focus on ambition and focus on being known around the organisation, or so. Focus on if you focus on learning, and that's in your ambition is to learn more, and you develop skills and experience, and you do well, then good things will come to you. Exactly.
And my last question, and thanks for being such a great guest. If there was two people you could recommend for us to sort of contact, you think would be the listeners would be good in the channel for us to get on, who would it be? Two people in the channel you think the listeners would like to hear from?
Jeez. Have you spoken to Martin Hallowell yet? On a podcast?
No, I haven't. I'm going to do something with National Autistic Society, and I'll get him involved. I think he'd be a great person.
I honestly, in the short term of being with Softcat, and I've known Martin for many years, so as a customer in the UK and what have you. But the guy is, he's so good. He's so strong in so many areas. He's got such a clarity of thought and attention to detail. Will always give a good answer and tell you what he thinks. So I think he'd be an outstanding candidate.
Okay.
Who else? I would think somebody like a Sarah Shields from Dell, whose name has probably come up before.
Yeah, I think we've actually got
she's coming on soon.
Is she?
Coming
on. Okay.
But I think
so I'm now showing that I haven't listened to part or not in tune with what's going. But she's great. I actually bumped into her at Stamford Bridge last night at the Chelsea Bayern game by coincidence. She was there with West Coast. But I just think she's got an interesting perspective. She's had an interesting journey in the channel. And she's obviously, been very successful. Has got a very strong leadership role in a very big company, Dell. And I think she's got some really good perspectives to share. So yeah, perfect. Sarah Shields.
Great, Graeme, you've been a great guest. Thanks
for your time. Much. Thank you.
Bye bye. Thanks for joining us and listening to another episode of our Channel Chat podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard and are listening on iTunes, please could you give us a review and subscribe in order to get the newest episodes as soon as they're released. Otherwise, as always, we release an episode every Thursday at midday, so hopefully you can join us then.